Hello once again, everyone. It's Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com, here for another submarine overview. This is just a little boat. So if you're good with your submarines, you'll recognize this. And if you're not, or if it just looks weird on the screen, this is a Russian Akula attack submarine, rendered in 1/48 scale, which means this boat comes in at roughly 8 feet in overall length. Not a small submarine by anybody's recollection. This was originally built by Dwayne Hill up in Canada, and I actually sold him this fiberglass hull that he did all the work to. You can see it's almost a foot in diameter. Dwayne stretch built the watertight cylinder that goes into that. I want to show that to you here a little bit. All of the appendages were 3D printed by me and sent over to Dwayne for implementation in the boat. It's a monster, but if you are ever wanting to make an impression at the pond, this is how you do it. So let's take a look at some of these things bow to stern. So you can see that a lot of the details are actually put in on a combination of scribing and 1/8 inch tape. Now the tape is probably not the best way to go. I think what you'll find over the years is that it tends to curl, and we'll see that here in a little bit. But certainly for now, it looks really, really good. All of these vents, Dwayne did something really cool. He made rectangular openings and then 3D printed perfect grates that are inserted there and then sanded and filled. So these look amazing. Really, really good. Going in the back, you can see all of our waterline markers there and a little bit of that, what I was talking about before, a little bit of curling paint going on there right now. Going in the back, we can see all of our aluminum shafts for our periscopes and masts. This one, of course, is one of the most important. If you look on the top, you can actually see a little intake, and that is for the ballast system. Moving into the back, we got some reactor scoops in here that absolutely love to snag weeds if you're close to the bottom. We got our latch, our rear hatch for the upper hull. And then obviously all our rudders, dive planes, the big towed sonar array pod that is so, indicative of this particular boat. And then we've got a big 3D printed propeller. And this thing is probably 5 inches in diameter, the correct counterclockwise rotating propeller, which just looks amazing when you're looking at it under the water. At the full surfaced water line, actually about 1/2 inch of that prop is out of the water, which makes a really cool bubble trail if you're just tooling around on the surface. What we're going to do now, we're going to crack into this beast, and I want to show you how everything works. So access is really easy. These sliders mean you need no tools. We just slide the rear one forward, the forward one forward, and then all we're going to do is just take the upper hull and put it down next to the boat. I'm going to undo our intake hose for the air pump. And now you can see the giant cavernous interior of the boat. Let's take a look at this watertight cylinder starting at the front, and we'll work our way to the back. Powering everything is a big sealed lead acid battery. I believe this is about 10 amp hours, if I'm not mistaken. Super easy to get in and out. It just like lifts. What is that thing? 9 amp hours. There we go. Lots of juice for this boat. Main power just gets connected like that, and that's what turns the whole boat on. Magnetic coupler for the forward dive planes. Now you can see when this was given to me, these were Dwayne's magnetic connectors, and these I believe you just get from like Home Depot. They're tacks for like on your refrigerator to put notes up there. They work, especially on smaller boats, but the magnetic force is not tremendous. We manufacture what we call click-ons here with rare earth magnets that have probably double the connective force in these. And so just because there's so much force on there, manufactured these little clips. And these just go on like that. And they just make sure that those don't come disconnected on you. We got rubber bellow seals, our forward dive plane servo, our air pump that purges the ballast tank. And then we got this linear servo, which activates this forward vent. So you can see like there's a little kind of a ramp underneath connected to that servo arm, and it depresses this vent valve in here for the forward vent. We got a big ballast tank, a propel gas backup, an emergency gas backup subsystem. And that brings us to the rear ballast servo, which is the same setup, linear. This does a little bit more though. So not only does that activate the vent, but as it moves through its cycle, this is the one I believe that also does the activation of the air pump, or no, maybe that's up front. That's up front. He has a little micro switch on there, but you can see at the far end of the travel, it depresses that little plunger on the front of the ballast tank, and that is your gas backup. So really there's 4 positions. There's neutral, vent, air pump, and gas backup. So I've got that on a potentiometer slider, so you can control that. We'll show that to you in a bit. We have a TDR10, 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz receiver in here. And then our rear rudder and dive plane servos. A beautiful, big, beefy motor, and that runs through a gearbox in there. And then our electronic speed controller. Dwayne's also got this set up for a little test hose so you can test the watertight integrity of your watertight cylinder. And we got a double U-joint connector in here. And the neat thing about this, by the way, is that with this being magnetic, this is actually a slip shaft in here. So you have a small rectangular shaft in this, a large one in that, and they nest here. So when you pull this out, it just comes right apart. You don't need to undo any screws or bolts or anything like that. Let's fire this thing up and I'll just show you everything working. Like I said, you just connect it. Ta-da! You're done. Pull out our radio here, which is already powered up and set to the Akula. We got forward dive planes going on. And then our air pump scenario, and I've got that on the slider on the side. You pull it down to go down, up to go up. So if we go down, what's this way? Down, both of the vents are open. Then we go back to neutral, and then to air pump, and then gas blow, which I have no gas in there right now, so you can't really see it. But it does depress that little thing, which you can certainly see. There we go. See? And then in the back, whoop, let me turn that off. And then in the back, we got our rudders. Oh, I got my connector for this in my hand. There we go. Rudders and our dive planes. Now, I've got this set up a little bit differently. Rear planes are on here, and the reason I do this is because this is ratcheted, so I can move these to a position and they remain there. So when I trim this out for periscope depth, I can set the perfect setting for the stern planes at a given speed, and then it'll just hold periscope depth all day. It's actually pretty awesome. And then the throttle is on the left slider here, so you pull it like a trigger to go forward and push it away from you to go backwards. Nice and smooth, really torquey. It's really simple setup. There's no more features, there's no more gizmos, there's no more accessories. This is just a simple, robust, easy to work on, reliable submarine. Now, a couple of things that I want to point out here. If we go back to the stern here, you've got our upper rudder, which is completely out of the water when you are in surfaced condition. but your lower rudder, which is always engaged, has this extension on it. Now, this was done to increase turning performance, which I am going to say is relatively terrible. Now, if anybody is familiar with modern nuclear submarines, you know, you've got relatively small control surfaces set ahead of the propeller. This is done for noise so that you don't generate a lot of an acoustical signature for your enemies to detect you. You look at some of the earlier submarines, those control surfaces are behind the propellers, which means you've got increased performance when you have your propeller turning, because all of that prop wash is washing directly over your control surfaces. So from a modern submarine perspective, what that basically means is unless you're moving quickly through the water, these control surfaces are not doing anything. If you're surfaced, you've only got half of your rudder basically working. So some people do this extension. What other people have done, either in addition to or in place of, they actually make this lower stabilizer, which is fixed, part of the rudder so that the entire system down here moves. I kind of like that personally because you can rig it up to make it look like it's a separate rudder. But the only time you'll see that it's not actually scale is when it's up out of the water and you're testing it. So that is, as a hint, if you've got a modern boat with the stabilizers on the bottom, not a free-flying rudder like the Americans typically use, you can make that whole assembly your rudder, and that will basically double the surface area of the lower rudder, making it a lot easier to drive around. Speaking of which, operationally, it's not going to win drag races, but it'll get up and move. Absolutely. It'll have a nice wake behind it. On the surface, you just have to watch. The prop is going to tend to pull air from the top, which, by the way, is not cavitation. For those guys with submarines who say my prop is cavitating, you deserve a slap upside the head. You're not cavitating. You're just pulling air from the surface. It's getting sucked into the prop and blown out the back. That's what's happening. So you're going to want to submerge a little bit, get that prop under the water to get a little bit more speed out of it. As I mentioned before, turning radius is pretty abysmal. I'll say this is going to be like a 40 to 50 foot turning diameter. You need a big body of water to run this big boat. One thing that the owner is probably going to want to invest in sometime down the road after he gets a chance to operate it and see what he feels like, a bow thruster may be something he would want to invest in. I think that would probably be a really good idea, and you've got acres of room up front to put a bow thruster in. So really, there's not much of an excuse not to do it if you want to go that route. Submerged performance is absolutely stellar. This thing will hold periscope depth all day at any speed. It's absolutely beautiful. The forward planes, despite their tiny size, once you get some velocity through the water, they'll allow you to hold almost any depth you want. Obviously, this also has an automatic pitch controller in it, which means it's going to keep the boat on a level, even keel at all times. So overall, once you get it in the proper trim, get it in a nice line, it's just a blast to drive and keep at whatever depth you want. They give you a quick shot underneath there. You can see, you know, some flotation foam in there, and then the intake for the periscope. But really, what I want to show you is just how darn easy it is to get into this boat. You just drop it in place, line it up, push the pin, line it up, push the pin, and you're done. Despite this huge size, you know, this seam is really nice. This is really nice, and locking it down is zero problem whatsoever. Shout out to Dwayne for doing an amazing job getting all of that rigged up. So with that brings us to the conclusion of this overview of this teensy tiny Russian Akula in 1/48 scale. I hope you enjoyed it. Hey, if you did, like and subscribe. It helps us out here at the Dry Docks a lot. If you got questions or comments, drop them down below. Shoot me an email, bob@nautilusdrydocks.com. I always love to hear from you. And with that, we are going to let you go. You have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.